Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Oak Ridge Community Church. How are we all doing this morning? All right. All right, that's good. Happy 4th of July weekend. You know, I figured you guys are maybe either the faithful few. I figure you're one of three categories. The faithful few who are coming no matter what. You know, it's a holiday weekend, but we go to church, and I applaud you for that. Either that or you don't have any lakefront property, right? Or 3, you don't have any friends that are inviting you to any lakefront property. But anyway, we are excited about this morning. We had a great service. The first service, I'm excited about this one and what God's going to do as well. But, you know, we live in an amazing country, and I think the greatest country that the world has ever known. And, yeah, that's a round of applause. And we have, from what I understand, we have had an unprecedented run of freedom, a freedom that other people in other lands at other times have just never enjoyed the way that we have. And I think sometimes we take that for granted, just don't think about it enough and give thanks to God enough. So there's a video that I want us to watch that I think would put some of those things in perspective. So if you could turn your attention to the screens.
There was no freedom.
People is have a really hard life, and they going to the jail, and then government kill them.
The entire Sudanese civil war started in my hometown.
Everybody's corrupted. Everyone is corrupted. There's the rebels. There's all these people fighting.
They call you slave.
Government don't let to us to go to the church.
They came on the land, and you know they were just killing everybody.
So I talked to my neighbor about Jesus.
What they did, they fired on us. So everybody had to jump into the water.
Her mother started believe to Jesus, and then her husband killed her.
It was a nightmare getting separated from your parents.
That night we were just seeing bullets. I thought they were fireflies, but they were actually bullets.
Her husband said, if I find who talked about you to the Jesus, I'm gonna find them and I'm gonna kill them too.
We escaped and got into the mountains, into the forest.
We had actually run quite fast indeed.
My parents, they say we can live here anymore.
And we found ourselves in a refugee camp in Ethiopia.
I lived in a refugee camp for 7 years.
And we went to the United Nations.
I did always pray about getting to a better place. Now that I've come here, I've got the freedom to go to school, study what I want, be who I want.
You can wear whatever you want. You can go to the church.
Here, I have opportunities.
I'm studying biotechnology engineering and graphic designing.
My master's in accounting.
After I finished college, I want to be a lawyer.
God always take up the shield and defend us.
I've asked him everything I've ever wanted and everything I've gotten.
I mean, I saw how God is good.
I'm going to open us up with a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we come to you this morning, and we are grateful. We're thankful for the freedoms that we have in this country, and we're thankful that you have put us here, and we're thankful that we have enjoyed just an unprecedented run of freedom where we could proclaim the gospel and influence not only this country but countries throughout the world. And God, we know that those freedoms are not the norm, and we pray for people in other lands who are dying for their faith, who are being ravaged by war, who are just living in poverty and just horrible conditions. But God, we know that you're still in control, and we know that Jesus is still the answer. And Father, I just pray for those people, but I pray also that we just have minds that are grateful, that we don't take for granted what we have, and that we continue to boldly go forth and speak the name of Jesus Christ, who brings ultimate freedom. And it's in his name we pray. Amen. Awesome.
Well, good morning. I was actually Googling knock-knock jokes before service about freedom, and I couldn't find any.
Yeah, so what'd you tell us that for?
It's because freedom doesn't knock, freedom rings.
You know what I call that? That's a pity clap, because that was weak. That was weak. So
I thought it was really funny. Well,
yeah, you thought it was funny. That was good. You and no one else. Okay, go ahead. I'm just kidding. Yeah, that was good.
if you're visiting with us, we want to have a special good morning. We love visitors. We love first-time guests, and we're excited to have you. We want to meet you, so the best way for us to do that is through these new guest brochures. These are available at our information center, which is just right in that lobby. Inside the brochure, it tells you a little bit about Oak Bridge, and it also gives you 2 free coupons. One is for a free t-shirt, and one's for a free beverage from our cafe. And then also, if you're visiting, you'll notice we don't take an offering in service. We ask that you not give and let this service be our gift to you. However, if you do call Oak Bridge your home and you wish to give what God has blessed you with, there are joy boxes throughout the campus, and there's also giving online available. And then last, we do not take communion in service, but we do offer communion in a room right behind me. It's called the Reflection Room. There's also a place for you to pray, maybe write down some prayers, pray with our prayer team, and it's really neat. So if you've never stopped in, I would encourage you to check it out.
Great. Hey, how many of you guys saw the new sign in the kids' wing? Did you guys see that? Isn't that cool? So, they're adding, over the course of that, we actually get 6 new classrooms. So if you've been in our classes and checked it out, they are just at maximum capacity. So real soon, and I know we keep saying that, but it's progressing, coming along, we're going to be able to move in and take advantage of all those rooms. But one of the cool things, and Tom mentioned it last week, is that we're going to have a sensory room in there for some of our special needs students and kids. And last week we introduced these 4th of July Freedom t-shirts, and we sold out of a lot of sizes, some of the colors. We got 2 back in. We got the navy blue one and the red one that she just held up. I'm not sure how many they sold in the first service, but there's actually some kid sizes in the blue one and some tank tops as well. And Kelsey, where's all that money going towards?
All that money is going to fund the sensory room
Yep.
that we've been speaking about.
That's great. And then what do we want to remind them about next Sunday?
Next Sunday is Oak Ridge Day at Dairy Queen. So as many of you know, Dairy Queen lets us use their parking lots on a regular basis. They've always been super great about it, so we just want to say thanks to them, and we want to make sales go through the roof. So Tom has talked to them over at Dairy Queen, and they are staffed and ready. And all day, if you just tell them you're with Oak Ridge, we want to go and we want to get as many cheeseburgers as we can.
Cheeseburgers, ice cream. So go over there after the second service next week, all throughout the day, and again, just let them know. And then the guy said that he was actually going to return a portion of that back to the church, so that's going to be awesome. We've got in 2 weeks, it is, right? We've got the Big Stuff Olympics. Isn't it not amazing that it's already July? I mean, is the summer flying by for everybody else? So we're into July. 3 weeks from now, we leave for Big Stuff. And that's what we've got 270 of us going this week. So that's pretty cool. 5 buses, and yeah. So that's for students going into 7th grade all the way up through seniors in high school. But the week before, so we'll be leaving Sunday morning in 3 weeks, but 2 Sundays from now, right after the second service, we're going to have the Big Stuff Olympics. Sometimes a lot of first-timers are going to camp. They might be a little nervous. They want to meet some of their leaders, meet some other kids. So we're going to find a park. We haven't found that yet. We've got a couple in waiting. But right after the second service, we're going to provide lunch for the students. And it's open for every kid that's going into 7th grade and above, whether they're going to Big Stuff or not. And what we do is just have this day, we provide lunch, but then just have all kinds of crazy games. We separate them out by grade and by gender and just go at it. And I think that lasts for 3 or 4 hours, so just mark that down. Did you have anything else?
That's all I got.
We don't have anything else?
No more jokes.
Nothing? No more jokes for us? That's good. So, again, we're going to have a great service. We've got some great songs, some great worship. We've got our God that is just awesome. And in this first song, if you could help us out with a little bit with some fist pumping, you guys will catch on. But even before that, why don't you stand up, say Happy 4th to people around you, and let's get ready to worship.
You are the God face. Have your way. The moment that we see you, we are changed. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Holy ground. Not by power, not by might, but only by the cross we come alive. Here we're undone, overcome by heaven's love revealed before our eyes. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. In wonder and surrender we fall down. Show us your glory. Show us your glory. Let every burning heart be holy ground. Have your way. Lift your voices. Chains fall. Chains fall. Fear bow. Here now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed. Hope found. Here now. Jesus, you change everything. Chains fall. Fear bow. Here and now. Jesus, you change everything. Lives healed. Hope found. Here and now. Jesus, you change everything.
Awesome. Thanks, God. Stay standing. We're going to sing one more. We've got another great song. And, we've been singing about how great is our God, how Jesus changes everything. And yet, every week I speak to people that are hurting, that are in a tough spot, and they're saying, when is this going to stop? Is there any hope? Are things ever going to get better? And, confidently I can say every time through experience, through just seeing it over and over, that somehow, whether it's through a song, whether it's through a chance encounter with someone, whether it's through someone just speaking truth into your life, whether it's through the Bible, whether it's just through God's Spirit just working on you, God somehow comes through. And maybe he changes circumstances. Sometimes he does that, but oftentimes he just calms us in the midst of the storm. And we've got this next song, and I spoke to someone in between services, someone very close to me. They had some really rough news that came to them this past week. And they said that song was exactly what I needed. So maybe this song will be exactly what you need if you're going through a tough time, and just to know that God's still in control, right? And that it can be well with your soul even in the midst of some tough spots and some tough situations. So let's again sing this together.
Far be it from me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. Through it all, through it all, my eyes are on you. And through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you. And it is well. It is well. So let go my soul and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go my soul and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. So let go my soul and trust in Him. The waves and wind still know His name. The waves and wind still know His name. It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well.
Thank you, guys. You can go ahead and take a seat. I'm going to trust that some healing took place during that song, and just an amazing reminder of our great God. The waves and wind still know his name. They still obey him. And I think to Jesus, when he walked this earth and he calmed storms and he healed people, and he still does that today. And he still is available and still personable, and that's just the amazing thing about our God. We can go right to him right now. That one that we sing to, the one that we worship, the one that we glorify, who is deserving of all that, is right here in our midst and wants to hear from his kids. So why don't you take some time and go to our God. Father in heaven, maybe for some of us this is the first time we've slowed down enough just to connect with you, just to speak to you. And I thank you, God, that you don't hold grudges, that you don't hold it against us, but that you want us to come to you no matter where we're at, no matter what our condition is. You want to hear from us. And so, Father, we count it as a privilege and an honor. It's really almost beyond comprehension that we can come and actually speak to you, that you hear, and that our prayers actually make a difference. So, God, I pray for those people this morning that are hurting, that need a reminder, that need a touch, whether it's through the church, whether it's, again, through just an element of this service, whether it's through a friend, whether it's through a scripture passage that they read this week or a book. God, I pray that you touch them, and I pray that you help them to have a soul that can say, it is well. God, this morning we give you all the glory, we give you all the honor. We know that we gather here to proclaim Jesus and to gather in his name. Amen. All right, again, good morning. How many of you, just by show of hands, how many of you guys like school? How many of you like school? Wow, we got kind of a lame crowd here. Not very many of us like school. You know, I didn't like school either. But I've always liked to learn. I've always liked to learn. Ever since I was a little kid, I've liked to learn, and I still do today. And I might be a little nerdy, but as I've grown older, I even appreciate learning more. And I think I would even do school differently if I went back. But I appreciate it more because every time I find a new truth or discover something or find some bit of trivia that just is a revelation to me, I can just go and say, our God is even bigger than I thought he was. That his creation is more glorious than I had ever even thought before. And that's kind of the way that I look at learning. So today's message, I wanted, as I was preparing for it, just to take notice of just things around me. And just to be in awe of our God. And that's really what I hope for this message. It just sparks something where you leave and go out and you just take notice of his handiwork and what he's doing. So I tried to think of a time when I've really had one of those aha moments. You know, one of those times where I was really just like overwhelmed with just the wonder and awe of God. So how many of you in here, again, show of hands, how many of you in here are parents? How many of you got kids? Okay, now you can lower those. But men, raise your hand back up if you're a dad that was in the delivery room when your kids were born. Okay. So probably most of us. But, you know, it's not always been that way. I've got a younger sister and two older brothers. You guys know Tom, and then I've got another older brother. So 4 of us in the family. And I don't think my dad was in the birthing room for any of those. You know, times have changed, and we're there. And so I was there for all 5 of my kids. Christy, 4 pregnancies, 5 kids. We'll talk about that in just a second. But I was in there for each one of them, and I've got a confession to make. I didn't really want to be, okay? I didn't want to be. I know it's a miraculous thing. I know it's awesome, but it's a gross thing as well. I mean, it really is. And so Christy's first pregnancy was with Josh. You guys know Josh. He's been giving the message as a pastor here. But some of you might not know it, but Josh is actually a twin. He's got a twin sister, Jessica. And and she's over here. I could ever stand up, but she's really shy, and she'd get mad at me, wouldn't you, Jesse? So I won't do that. But so late in the pregnancy, Christy had some blood pressure issues and was having some problems with her sciatic nerve. So the doctors decided to induce labor. I think it was about 10 days early. And we're at the hospital, and things were progressing, and it was getting time to head into the birthing room. And, you know, twins, they're considered a high-risk pregnancy, so there was a few doctors in there, and there was just a myriad of nurses and all kinds of people in there. And it's getting close to that time, and I know a lot of times now you just have it in a birthing room, but, you know, they wouldn't let us do that, so they wheel us down. And as they start to wheel us down, I start to get a little nervous and starting to feel a little nauseous at this point. And I know, I didn't have the hard part, you ladies. I get that. But you women don't understand the stress that we men go through when our wives are in that kind of condition, okay? So kind of help me out here, all right? So we get into the room, and I didn't know what to do. I had blown off the birthing classes. I thought they were a little weird, so I after the second one, I quit going to those. And so I didn't know whether I should stay up by Christy's head and you know, hold her hand and encourage her to breathe and encourage her to push. I didn't know if I should do that, or I didn't know if I should go down and kind of watch where all the action was taking place, right? To witness this gross miracle. So, and again, cut me some slack. I was only 25 years old at the time, so I decided to go watch the action. And it was surreal, and the doctors were doing their thing, and Christy was doing her thing. And then on February the 28th of 1992, I got that wrong in the first service, of 1992, at 3:05 p.m., Josh was born. And I can say I was in awe. I mean, my wife had just given birth, this process had taken place, and I was in awe because, you know, I think my wife is a beautiful woman, and I'm okay, and somehow we had produced an alien. I mean, Josh came out, and I tried to find a picture to show you, and I know we've had them, but I think we've tried to purge it from our memory, because Josh came out, and he was like a cone head. I mean, he was just, you know, ugh. I mean, it reminded me of a bad scene from a Star Trek, one of those old creepy ones. He was so white that he was transparent. I mean, you could see his veins, and it was just, and I know you guys think that's mean, and this would be funnier if Josh was here, but I'm exaggerating, but not by much. He was not a very good-looking baby. So anyway, they take Josh away, you know, and they start to clean him up. And now again, I don't know what to do again. So I've got my son that's over in the corner, and do I go and hang with him? Or again, do I stay up by Christy, you know, and encourage her? Or do I go and watch, you know, Jessica being born? So I didn't know, so I decided to do all of those. So I'm moving around, you know, I'm checking on Josh, I'm coming down here, and okay, go, Christy, we're getting closer, you know, and coming up and doing all those things. And the nurses got mad at me because I kept bumping into their table that had all the sterilized instruments, but there's still one more to go, right? I mean, we've still got this one to go. And Christy's biggest fear, her biggest fear with this pregnancy, is that she would have the first baby natural, and then the second baby they would have to take C-section. So she didn't want that to happen. And again, Jessica is hopefully coming here soon. And if you know my daughter Jessica, she might be the most stubborn human being in the world. And she's stubborn, and she's always been a homebody. So I think Jessica decided while she was inside of Christy that she didn't want to leave, and that she wanted to stay inside of Mom. So this is going on, this process. And Christy's worn out. She's already delivered one baby. She's tired, and she's pushing, and the doctors are pulling, and it's not working. And so 15, 16, 17, 18 minutes go by. And the doctors, they kind of, you hear. So the doctors go over, and they huddle in the corner, and there's a group of them, and Christy's laying there, and we kind of hear them basically saying, look, we're going to give this one more shot. And if this doesn't work out, then, you know, we're going to have to go in and take the baby. So literally, Christy heard that. She's exhausted, her ears perked up, and she gets ready. She's like, "Ugh!" and this baby shoots out against the wall, right? And not quite that much, but pretty close. I mean, it was kind of like that. And so 20 minutes after Josh was born, we didn't have another. Jessie was a beautiful little girl, and it was cool, and I was in awe. And I was in awe for a few reasons. I mean, you know, the whole birth process and all that was amazing. But then I looked, and, you know, Josh is over here, and they'd clean him up, and he was 7 pounds 2 ounces. And then Jessica was 7 pounds 3 ounces. And I'm sitting there thinking, how in the world could 14 and a half pounds of baby just been inside of my wife? And then I thought, how was there enough room inside of her for them to develop the way that they did? And then I thought, with that, you know, squishing everything together, how in the world could Christy breathe during that pregnancy? And then I thought, and how in the world am I going to raise 2 little kids now? I mean, this was just an amazing thing. I mean, but then we had a lot of visitors, a lot of family, a lot of friends. And the part that I think brought the most awe for me and kind of the most joy was after all the people had left the hospital, and it was just me and Christy. And this was the same for all of my kids, all 5. Some of my favorite memories, some of my favorite moments, some of my most awestruck moments were when they would bring the babies back, and it's just me and Christy at night, and we're just holding them. And when I wrote this down, I cried, and I just thought, what a cool thing for God to work this out. And I was just in awe. And I remember not knowing anything. I mean, I'm holding the babies, and really for like the first day, I couldn't figure out, I'd never held a baby before. And I couldn't figure out how to transition a baby once my arm got tired to move it from here to here. I mean, and I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to raise this beautiful little girl and her alien brother? I didn't know how this was going to happen. But, we have an awesome God. We are surrounded by God's glory, by his grandeur, by his design. I mean, he is the master carpenter. He's the master planner, the master architect, builder, musician, designer, craftsman. We could go on, and his handiwork is all around us. It's all around us. And we should be in awe of him. But the question really this morning is, do we ever take notice? Do we ever stop and just look around and think, wow, I don't even know what to say. You are bigger than I thought, because we really should be. And I just want to challenge us on that this morning. Tegan, can you bring me over that picture? How many of you guys have walked down Art Hallway, this hallway right out there, and you've seen some of the handiwork of some of our artists? And a few years back, we did a sermon series on the 10 core values of the church. And then the art team, led by Bernie Hasselbring and Pam Ponder, they did a piece of art for each of those core values. And this one's my favorite. It's giftedness, and kind of just has, hands holding, saying you're precious, you're unique. And when I look at this painting, when I look at this picture, it's a beautiful piece of artwork, but it points to someone who thought this out. It points to someone who had some forethought, who got some materials together, who put them together. It took design. It took some thought. You could show that someone was behind it, someone with talent, someone with the ability to do this. And Tegan, you can come back and get it, because I don't want to screw it up or break it up here. But take that. But again, that artwork pointed to a designer. Would we all agree with that? Pointed to a designer. We live on the planet Earth, right? We know that. We live on the planet Earth. And I think they've got a picture of this blue marble that's out in space. And our Earth has a circumference. So if you traveled around the equator and just could somehow drive around the Earth, you'd go 25,000 miles. And this blue marble houses 7 billion people. And scientists believe, not counting bacteria, so not going into the microscopic world, scientists believe that there are 8.7 million different species that inhabit this earth, species of animals. That's a crazy amount, big number. 6.5 million of them they believe are on the land, and 2.2 million of them are in the waters. And here's a thing that blew my mind. That they believe that we've only discovered, cataloged, and found about 15 to 20% of all of those species of animals. So that means when we watch those National Geographic shows, at one point they may actually come up with some real evidence for a Bigfoot or a Loch Ness Monster, something that might actually show. But think of that. 80% is still left undiscovered in the animal kingdom, in the animal world. And our life here on earth, that this God put together, it depends on our sun, this big ball of gas, right? The nearest star. And the nearest star is 93 million miles away from Earth. And our solar system, that part of the universe that revolves around what we call the sun, this big star, is just one of roughly 300 billion that are found in our galaxy called the Milky Way. So 300 billion solar systems. And again, when I was looking this up, that's just kind of an average figure, because some said it was more, some said it was less. I mean, they might be off, these famous scientists, by 100 billion. How big is a God where scientists can be off by 100 billion and it's no big deal? I mean, think of that. And it's believed, so 300 billion of these galaxies in the Milky Way solar system, in the Milky Way galaxy, 300 billion of these solar systems, and it's believed that there are over 100 billion galaxies out in space. Those are some crazy big numbers. right? Crazy big numbers. I mean, numbers that are too big for my mind to comprehend, that point to something really big, really strong, really capable. To put this in perspective, so it's believed that there are like quintillion stars. I mean, that number doesn't mean anything, but here, to put it in perspective, that number is larger, they believe, than all the grains of sand that are contained on the earth's beaches. There are that many stars out in the heavens. I mean, think of that. Think of that. That's just crazy. So then you look at our sun, right? And again, how big is our sun? And I think they've got a picture that compares the earth to our sun. There's the earth compared to our sun. They believe that, they don't believe that they've measured, there could be 9, I think, what was the number? Where have I even got it? These numbers are starting to, 9.3 billion suns. Nope, that's not it. I don't know, 100 million, something like that. It's like a million of these earths could fit into our sun. I mean, that's kind of crazy, right? Kind of crazy. And then I started thinking, well, how big is our sun? I mean, is it huge compared to all the other stars that are out there? Is it small? And I'm 5'9". And I looked up, and the average man in the United States is 5'9.5". And it said that our sun is kind of a little below average. So I'm a little below average in size. Our sun is a little below average compared to all these other stars. Right? So they've looked out, and again, we've only just begun to scratch the surface of all that's out there. But the biggest known star that's out there is a star they call Canis Majoris. It literally means the big dog. And here's a comparison of our sun to that big star Canis Majoris. You can't even see it down on the left. They've measured, and they said that 9.3 billion of our suns could fit into this big star Canis Majoris. I mean, can you picture that? And again, this shows the glory and majesty of a creator. And I could go on and on about the heavens. Stats that, quite frankly, just freaked me out. They were too big for me to comprehend. And I started to think, is it any wonder that King David in the Old Testament, he'd grown up as a shepherd, so he spent many nights out in the fields and out in the forest and out in the wilderness by himself alone with these sheep. And he would look out and gaze, like that picture there, into the stars. And he writes this in chapter 19 of the Psalms. He says, "The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge. They have no speech. They use no words. No sound is heard from them, yet their voice goes out into all the earth, their words to the end of the world." I mean, think of that. He's sitting there just saying, stars that are out there, they don't speak, they don't talk, but they're pointing to something really big. I mean, they're pointing and they're proclaiming something that has created something magnificent. The heavens declare the glory of God, but so do the things around us. And I've mentioned before, but Christy, my wife, is a butterfly farmer during the spring and early summer of the year. And each year in February, she orders these painted lady caterpillars. And she orders them over the internet, and they come in, and these caterpillars come, and she gets a specific plant that she puts them on, and they're in cages, and these caterpillars begin to chomp on these leaves and start to grow. And then before you know it, they kind of climb, and Christy puts some coffee filters in these little cages, and they go up, and they attach to these coffee filters, and a change starts to take place, and they shed their skin, and they start to harden in a shell called a chrysalis. And then for about a week or so, you don't even know what's going on. You think it's dead, and a transformation has taken place inside of this chrysalis. And just a few days later, all of a sudden, a butterfly emerges from this chrysalis, something with the same DNA as this caterpillar, but something totally different. A metamorphosis changes. And then this butterfly emerges, and it finds a mate, and the two come together, and then the butterfly lays eggs, and the whole process starts over. So if you came into my bedroom, like in late April, you would see this process going on in its different stages. You'd see caterpillars, butterflies, eggs, all these plants. It's kind of gross when you're trying to sleep and you hear these caterpillars like squishing around going, kind of a sick thing, but it's still amazing nonetheless. Amazing nonetheless, right? And that's just one different type of butterfly, one species of butterfly. And looked up, there are 20,000 different species of butterflies. 20,000. And each has its own unique color pattern. Each has its own unique wings that are shaped. And again, I think our art team is amazing. But if I came to them and said, you got to come up with 20,000 different species of this one butterfly with kind of the same shape, you got to make the wings different, the color patterns different, I don't think they could come up with that much. But our God can. No problem for him. So there's one species, and I watched a couple, over the last couple weeks, I watched a couple documentaries on butterflies. Again, I know a high nerd factor, but that's okay. And one of these butterflies that I looked at was called the monarch butterfly. And again, we've got a picture. You guys have all seen this. And again, this freaked me out. Several million of these butterflies live throughout the United States and Canada. And I watched, and I took notes on this documentary. And in the late spring, when it's warm enough, and they're up in this, in the United States and Canada, all of a sudden, the butterfly emerges from a chrysalis, and it goes through that process that I talked about, same kind of process as the painted lady. It feeds, finds a mate, lays eggs, and it's funny because the eggs have to be laid on a specific plant called milkweed. And if the eggs aren't laid on this milkweed, when the caterpillars emerge, they'll die because they feed on and live on this plant called milkweed. And it's amazing, this butterfly that's got a brain smaller than a pinhead and weighs less than an ounce, it seeks out this one type of plant. And it's somehow designed where it can smell from up to 2 miles away this milkweed plant. But it's got to make sure that it doesn't make any mistakes. So it doesn't just rely upon the smell. It goes up and with its feet and with its proboscis, it scratches and is able to sniff and make sure that the smell of the plant matches with the smell of milkweed. And then it tastes it and makes sure that it tastes right. And again, just a miracle. And I want to say, how? How does it know how to do that? Out of all the plants in North America, it finds this specific one and lays its eggs. And it's cool. So this cycle goes on for about 3 or 4 generations during the summer. Right? So these butterflies come, they die. They only have a lifespan of 2 to 4 weeks, the butterflies. Then the caterpillars come, goes through the whole thing. Well, then something amazing starts to happen late in the summer. So as the days start to grow shorter, as the sun kind of changes position on the horizon, somehow something inside of this butterfly, some genes kick in. Whether it's one gene, they think it's like 6 genes, just kicks in, and all of a sudden it produces like a superhero butterfly. And these butterflies now, like the 4th generation during the summer, they're able to all of a sudden live 9 months. So the lifespan before for 3-4 generations is 2 to 4 weeks, and now all of a sudden this butterfly is able to live 9 months because the survival of the species depends on it. And this generation of butterflies, because it can't live during the winter, during the cold months, it would die out, it has to migrate down to Mexico. And there's a specific group of forest, I think it's west of Mexico City. And this specific forest contains a fir tree called the Oyamel fir tree. And these butterflies start to migrate, the different pockets, all these butterflies that are east of the Rocky Mountains, they start to head south. And they navigate by the position of the sun. They travel about 50 miles a day. They readjust their course. What's kind of cool is all these different colonies of butterflies merge in Texas in like mid-October, and then they head down and they follow specific mountain ranges in Mexico. And they believe that these specific mountain ranges, they're able to follow them because inside the butterfly they found these little magnets called magnetite. And this specific group of mountains is really metallic in nature, has all kinds of like pockets of different metals. And so they're able to navigate their way down using all these things. And again, I say how? They've never been there before. They don't know what's going on, right? And you see those and they're traveling. And then they make their way just like into the same trees that their ancestors 3 or 4 generations were before. And they hibernate there during the winter. And I think they've got a picture of that on fir trees. So if you went down to these forests in Mexico during the winter, you would see monarch butterflies hanging like that. And again, I know you didn't come here for a science lesson, but I was just wowed by all this and thought that stuff doesn't happen by accident. How does a generation all of a sudden become super strong, not knowing anything, and travel to these same places over and over again to keep it going? And it just amazed me. And then in early March, these butterflies start to awaken, and their reproductive organs become active, and they mate, and they feed on nectar, and then they make their migration back to the north, and it all starts over again. And all I can say is awesome. Just the natural world is just crazy, and it just reeks of a creator with design. And see, I could talk about the sonar ability of dolphins and the navigation skills of sea turtles and salmon and bats and the metamorphosis of tadpoles to frogs. And we could talk about all kinds of birds and insects and mammals and reptiles and amphibians and come up with all kinds of stats that should literally blow our minds. But think about this. There are people that devote their lives to studying just one species of animals. Right? Just one of the 8.7 million species, and yet they devote their lives to this and still don't know exactly what makes all these animals tick. That's awesome. That's crazy. And all I can do, again, is stand in awe and say, wow. And we have only found 15 to 20% of the animal life on this planet. Here's what a man named Job said. A few thousand years ago, Job is probably the oldest book of the Old Testament. And remember, at this time, their knowledge of the world was not what we have today. And yet Job was smart enough to write this in Job chapter 12. He said, ask the animals and they'll teach you, or the birds in the sky and they'll tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish in the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. And see, I think that our God delights in his creation. He delights in his variety. It shows his glory. It shows his design. It shows the wonder of him. And there's that book called Job that I just mentioned. And Job is kind of a tough read in the Old Testament. And it was about a guy named Job who had gone through great adversity, great suffering. And to be honest, he couldn't figure out why. And he questioned God and he said, God, why are you allowing me to go through this? What is going on here? And for like 35 chapters, we hear kind of a lot of whining and some of his friends giving him bad advice and this back and forth. And then after all this time, it almost seems like God says, okay, Job, I've put up with enough here. And I've heard it, and it's okay for you to have questions. And he says, now it's time for you to sit down and be quiet and listen. Okay? And God sets him on a path and kind of gives him a perspective kind of in a stern way. And I could read those chapters, and they're some of my favorite, but I just want to highlight a few verses in this. In Job chapter 28, this is God speaking to Job. He sat him down, and he never really gives Job the answers. He just says, Job, let me give you my credentials here. And in Job 38, he says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? Now, these are constellations in the sky. These are clusters of stars up in the sky. He says, can you bring forth the constellations in their seasons? Or lead out the bear with its cubs? Do you know the laws of heaven? Can you set up God's dominion over the earth? Can you raise your voice to the clouds and cover yourself with a flood of water? Do you send the lightning bolts on their way, Job? Do they report to you, here we are? Who gives the ibis, a bird, wisdom, or gives the rooster understanding? So, and again, he goes on, and God says, where were you when I set the heavens in place, when I laid the foundations? And Job's just kind of speechless. And again, God goes on, and this next passage is from chapter 39. It's one of my favorite in Scripture because, again, I think that it gives us a perspective of the character, of the personality of our God. How he loves and delights in his creation. And this is what he says. And for you animal lovers, you ought to look this stuff up. In chapter 39 of Job, he says, the wings of the ostrich flap joyfully, though they cannot compare with the wings and the feathers of the stork. I mean, God says, look, I made the ostrich. It's a big old bird that can't fly. It's got wings, it's got feathers, and it flaps them like crazy, but it can't get off the ground. He says, Job, think of that. I made a bird that can't fly. I made a bird. It doesn't compare with those that are majestic and soaring across the sky. He says, and then he goes on, he says, she lays her eggs on the ground and lets them warm in the sand, unmindful that a foot may crush them, that some wild animal may trample them. She treats her young harshly as if they were not hers. She cares not that her labor was in vain. In other words, he's saying the female ostrich would not win Mother of the Year. Right? It lays these eggs and has no mind of protecting them. It doesn't really care where it puts them. They're open to predators. Right? God says, I really didn't make the ostrich very smart. He goes on and actually says that. He says, for I, God, did not endow her with wisdom or give her a share of good sense. But then this is the part that's cool. He says, but when she spreads her feathers to run, she laughs at the horse and rider. He says, I made a bird that can't fly, But this bird can run up to 42 miles an hour. I mean, and when it starts to run, it just flies right by the horse. Right by the horse. He says, Job, I created all this. All right, I've got some things in mind. I might be a little bigger than what you give me credit for. And then he goes on. He speaks to the horse. He says, do you give the horse its strength, Job? Or clothe its neck with a flowing mane? Do you make it leap like a locust, striking terror with its proud snorting? It paws fiercely, rejoicing in its strength, and charges into the fray. It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It doesn't shy away from the sword. Because I made the horses, and they run into battle. And they're strong and not afraid of anything. And see, I think what God's saying is, I made this universe the exact way that I wanted it. And I think if we look around, we would see God's handiwork in everything. And we'd understand that he is an awesome God. And nature is awesome, and the heavens and the stars are awesome. But nothing compares to we as humans. We are the apex of God's creation. We are the apple of his eye. It says, the scriptures say that he sings over us, that he rejoices over us. He loves us. We are created in the image of God. We are like nothing else in the entire universe. God loves and cares for us. Again, King David. Again, picture, he grew up as a shepherd boy, spent a lot of time alone, outdoors. I'm sure he had a lot of time to think, to look, to observe. And he had this to say about mankind, about us, in Psalm 139. It says, you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. And you know, earlier, I talked in kind of a pretty crude fashion about the magnificence of the reproductive system, of having a baby. And I could spout facts about this human body, about this wonderful machine that would blow our mind. And just one I want to give you because it freaked me out. We saw that blue marble, right? Circumference of 25,000 miles. Did you know that if we took all the veins, arteries, capillaries, all the blood, you know, the canals where the blood travels out of our body, and we laid them end to end, you know, on an average sized person, those veins, arteries, capillaries, they would stretch out to 60,000 miles. You could wrap around the earth 2.5 times. Does that not freak you out? And David says, we are fearfully and wonderfully made. You're darn right we are. Like no other. They're fearfully and wonderfully made. But even more awesome than that, more than the physical part of our body, God says that we were created in his image. And I think that means that we have the ability to reason. We have the ability to question. We have the ability to solve problems, to learn. We have the ability to sacrifice. We have the ability to actually forgive people who have wronged us, to pray for our enemies and people who have hurt us. We have the ability to love. The scripture says that we have the ability to seek out the God that created the heavens, that created the stars, that created all the animals, all the plant life around us. We can go after him. And maybe to me, the most unfathomable thing, the most crazy thing at all about our God is the fact that he's not far away, that he's not distant, that he cares about every single aspect of every area of yours and my life. He desires a relationship with you and me. And that's crazy. That's crazy. No wonder Psalm 8 says, when I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place. He says, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. Why? Why? Why would we matter? We are just a small part. And on this blue marble that could fit 1 million of them into a sun, you could fit 9.3 billion of them into this big planet. It's bigger than we can ever imagine. And I talked about all the big things. We could go smaller and smaller into the microscopic world and be in awe and wonder of our God in that. And yet God cares for you and me in a way like no other. He sent his son, Jesus Christ, and he came so that we could understand who he is, so that he could have a relationship with us, so that we could be reconciled to the God of this universe. Colossians 1 says this about Jesus. The Son, meaning Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created. Jesus was right there at the beginning. He is God in the flesh. He is the creator of all things. Things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him. This big God that created everything 2,000 years ago came as one of us so that we could understand him, so that we could relate to him, so that we could be in relationship with him. And again, a fact that just blows my mind, John 3:16 says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him." This big God, this awesome, powerful God, the one that spoke and the heavens leapt into existence, the one who nothing is impossible to. This God says that I came because I love you and because I want a relationship with you. So see, here's my hope. My hope is that we look around us and we stand in awe of the creation, not for the creation itself, but because it points to a really good, a really big, a really wise, a really smart, a really powerful, big God. And then I pray that we just continue to seek him. And if you know him already, good, then just be more in awe and be more worshipful and more thankful for what he's given to us. But if you don't know him, the scriptures promise that as you look out into the heavens, that you're without excuse. You know that something's out there. If you don't, sorry, but scripture says we're foolish. So you know that something's out there. And then the Bible promises that if we turn our eyes towards that, if we seek out what that is, that person that did all this, the Bible says that we will find him. And we've got a sign that says it's all about Jesus. And I believe that we find him when we find Jesus. So my prayer is that we just go out and we stop and slow down and we just see the handiwork of God all around, and we bring him glory and praise and honor, just to be in awe. Because Jesus is the way, truth, and the life, and he can be found. And he wants to be found, and he cares for you. Let's go to God in prayer. Father in heaven, I don't get it. I don't get a lot of the things that go on around us. I don't get how you were able to set all this in motion, how you created this. There are things that are just beyond our comprehension and always will be. But God, I know that your plan was for this to pique our interest, to show your glory, to show your magnificence, so that we might seek you out. And again, you promised that you're not far away. So Father, I pray that we have humble hearts. I pray that we realize that we are really small. And as David said in the scriptures, almost insignificant, but yet you rejoice over us. You care for us. You had each one of us in mind when you created everything. And again, that's beyond comprehension. You are bigger than we can imagine. You are more loving, more perfect, more awesome. And God, I just pray that we stand in awe and wonder as we seek you out together as a group, and we can just explode in worship with our lives, being thankful that you can be found, that you care for us and love us. It's in the mighty name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen. Let's stand up and sing.
our God.
All right, so here's what I hope. I hope you guys have a great weekend. I hope you enjoy the things around you, but I hope you take notice of how awesome our God is when you're enjoying the sun, when you're enjoying the leisure time, when you're enjoying your family and friends, even when you're being annoyed by those little insects. You realize that God created all of this, and he is worthy of our praise, and that he loves you and cares for you and delights in you and gives us all this as a gift so we can delight in him. All right, next week, I hope you come back. Tom's starting a new series, and it's called How to Respond to God When It Seems Like He's Not Responding to You. So I'm anxious for that, and you guys just have a great week.